at once and cause a chain reaction, you could create one hell of a boom. No one ever done that before. No one had ever been able to do that, but they knew from the science that that was the case. So the race was between us and the Germans. Who won that race? We did. How come? Because the Germans had one little disadvantage. That disadvantage was about that high. A guy by the name of Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler knew good science. Let's see, good science was German science. He also knew what bad science was. Bad science! Bad science was Jewish science! Jewish physics! No! Okay, Adolf. Next player. Adolf Hitler thought his political truths outweighed what the scientists told him. And he had nothing, and he demanded that German scientists had nothing to do with what he called Jewish physics. In other words, physics is practiced by whom? Albert Einstein. Oops. Did that create a little bit of disadvantage? Albert Einstein, of course, was Jewish. Did that create a little bit of disadvantage for German science? Thank God, excuse the expression. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd be speaking German right now. Okay, let's bring it a little closer to home. The controversy behind this issue of science and its measured truth. Texas. Listen, I taught for years in Texas. And I lived there. I know Texas. I've been in Texas for many years. And I'll tell you, there are people in Texas that demand that the science textbook, the biology textbooks, treat creationism the same as evolution in their science textbooks. And that's a pile of garbage. No, you cannot do that. It is fine to discuss creationism as a moral philosophy. Of course it is. But you have no right to demand of biologists that they take creationism as seriously as evolution, as a hypothesis, because the evidence does not support it. And I know I'm alienating people by saying this. We know from polling data that roughly half the American population does not believe in evolution, and that's fine. There's no reason on earth you should have to believe in something if your moral doctrines tell you it's not true. That's fine. But don't dress it up and call it science. Don't demand, even worse, of scientists that they conclude, treat your particular moral vision as science. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. Look, we have overwhelming evidence. I mean, is evolution the basis of modern biology? Can you go to any major biology department and find any evidence that creationism has the same status with any kind of support from the evidence? No, of course not. UCSD, the most prestigious educational institution in our community. Anybody there testing the hypothesis of creationism in the biology department? You will be laughed out of the institution. San Diego State, USD. Now, USD is a Catholic institution, but they got burned by this one. Galileo, remember Galileo?
Yeah.
Famous for, well, he was actually the use of a telescope and the calculation of orbits, but what he ended up doing was verifying a hypothesis by somebody else, Copernicus's hypothesis. You see, up until Copernicus and the evidence provided by Galileo, it was pretty obvious that the sun revolved around the earth. It comes up in the morning, it goes down in the evening. Oh, that was at least once we discovered that the earth really wasn't flat, because a lot of people thought it was flat because it looks flat. And they actually, for centuries, believed you could actually walk to the end of the earth and fall off. Once that was dispensed of as a hypothesis, then it was believed, it was obvious to our senses that the sun revolved around the earth. Copernicus said no, the opposite. But Galileo came along and said, ooh, I've calculated the orbits of the moon Jupiter, Mars, and no, we're all revolving around the sun. Anybody know what happened next? Anybody know what happened next? And Galileo measured and came up with the evidence to support Copernicus' hypothesis.
Wasn't he excommunicated?
He was arrested. This is the era of the Holy Inquisition. Arrested and threatened with torture and demanded that he recant. In other words, Galileo, meet Big Louie. Notice the large arms? Notice the red-hot poker. Guess where that's going? And at that point, threatened with torture, did Galileo recant? Did he take back his belief that the sun was the center of the solar system? Did he do it as a hero of science? Yes, he did. Take it back. With my fingers crossed, remove the red-hot poker. Yeah, he did. But who was right in terms of the evidence? Galileo. And did the church eventually apologize to him? Yes, it did. About 40 years ago. Late for Galileo. See, and as a result of that, Catholic Church has backed off of the science stuff. They do science to scientists and religion to those who believe in religion. And that's the way it works. Just as no one has no scientist has the right to come into your church and tell you you can't believe in God, you do not have the right to go into a science textbook and call your particular religion science. That's wrong.
Weren't they both arguing that they was the center of the universe, not the center of the solar system?
Yeah, they were arguing the center of the universe. Well, at the time, they thought we were kind of homocentric. We believed everything revolved literally and figuratively around us, which is also part of the religious doctrine at the time, which is why the church got it. Yeah.
I'm sure that like 97% or 99% of scientists are atheists.
I don't know if it's 97, 98, quite a few. But that proves what? Nothing. Nothing. I mean, it may be that science attracts people who are already atheists versus the science itself impact. I don't know. But a disproportionate number of them, especially in comparison to the American population. There are very few atheists in the American population, but a very high percentage, as you point out, among scientists. But again, that is a
correlation.
Bingo! Correlation. Might it be causation? It might. Correlation might be causation, but until we establish the rigorous reasons for that, 2 atoms of hydrogen, 1 atom of oxygen, all we can say is that it is a correlation. Is correlation necessarily causation?
No.
No. Might it be?
Yes.
Yes.
Very.
Okay. All right, so questions about this, let me make it a little more complex. All right. That is, let me make science a little more complex. Here's my version of a step up in complexity from the definition of science. Science is the careful collection of data, its logical explanation, and the publication of findings in a scientific peer-reviewed journal. Okay, so one more time. Careful collection of data, logical explanation, and publication of findings in a scientific peer-reviewed journal. That's time. Let me show you how important how you collect data can be. Quite a few people in this classroom are women. What should you fear if you're a female concerned about rape? A stranger or somebody you know? A stranger or somebody you know? Yes? Nope. You know, we start my 8 o'clock class. It's always the deadest class I ever teach. Because people think, all right. Who should you fear if a female? Who are you most likely to be raped by? A complete stranger or somebody you know?
Someone you know.
Yes, somebody you know. Good, good. But. Depends on how you measure. Any AOJ majors, people taking administration of justice? Usually you guys know some of this stuff. Okay, oh, that's right. I forgot. What UCR is? No? Okay. Yeah.
It's 22.
Okay, thanks. Uniform crime reports. This is a measurement of crime collected by the FBI. What they do is to solicit every police department across the country to submit their data. How many robberies were called into you? How many were verified? What percentage of those robberies would involve the use of a gun? Were the people home? All that kind of data is collected by the FBI and published annually. The UCR, the Uniform Crime Reports, goes back nearly a century, back to the 1920s or at least the 30s. It is the longest existing source of criminological data we have. And for most people, the simple fact that it's collected by the FBI, which has a great deal of status in American society, is what impresses them. But you've got to know how it's measured. And here's the risk. Because if you're a woman and you listen to the Uniform Crime Reports, for most of its history, more recently it's changed, but for most of its history, the UCR will tell you, as a woman concerned about rape, who should you fear? A complete stranger. A complete stranger. You guys were right, and the UCR was wrong, even though it's collected by the FBI. How come? You've got to know how it's measured. Yeah. Very good. The key with the UCR is that it is not a picture of crime. It is a picture of crime as seen through the eyes of the police. Remember what I said? The FBI collects it, but where does the data come from? The police. And remember as well, we talked about severity, certainty, speed, and severity, certainty. The key for the police to know about a crime is that it must get reported. Are all rapes reported?
No.
No. If a woman is raped by a complete stranger, brutalized, angry at this guy, is she very likely to report it?
Yes.
Yes. If she is raped by a guy she's been dating, and this is very common in younger years, a 16-year-old dating a friend of her family's. He's 2 years older than her. He's on the football team. Both their families are friends. They go to a party where he's drunk a lot of alcohol. He pulls off to the side of the road and says to her, "It's time." She says it's not. He uses his greater physical strength to engage in sex with her yelling for help. Now, by that description, is that rape?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. These days, it's not even no means no. It's you must get a yes for it to be consensual. It's not a matter that she didn't say no because she was passed out. No, no, no. That's still rape, sexual violence, even if she's passed out. You hear this stuff? Big concern on college campuses across the country right now. Okay. But now, is she as likely to report this to the police as the woman raped by a stranger? No. A lot depends on how you measure something. There's actually a better way of measuring. Most social science consider the UCR of minor importance in comparison to something called the NCVS.